Hey everybody, welcome back to the 66th episode of Taps and Patience. I'm AJ with Design the I'm AJ with Audacity Micro here with Harrison of Precision Ingenuity. We have new theme music because I stopped paying for the rights to the old theme music. I haven't decided on new music yet, so it's going to change, I think, every time. That might be kind of fun.
That was
Hi, Harrison.
exciting.
How you doing?
That was an exciting intro I was not expecting. Really jamming out over here for a minute.
I figured stick with the 80s music.
Oh, that's all right. We'll get a disco ball in here or something.
Yeah.
So how you doing?
I'm tired, but doing all right. Today's been a long day, and it's not over yet, but it is what it is.
Are you beginning to learn the ups and the downs of the job shop world?
Yeah, I mean that's a whole conversation.
Yeah, we can go into detail with that, but yeah, no, job shop life is one of those things where the highs are high, the lows are lows, and it's a wild ride in between.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to fix that and level it out a little bit more, but
yeah, this is my, the number one problem with the job shop world is you don't know what's coming in tomorrow. And so
yes.
That is the number one reason that I want to get into the product space, is because then I feel like you can level it out a little bit more. And I'm sure you can with a job shop space. But I mean, I was talking to my local shop here, and they were dead to the point where they had to let a couple people go. And then they just got hit with massive orders, and now they're swamped. And it's just like, you never know what 1 week to the next is going to bring. Are you going to be swamping? Are you going to be, are you going to go a couple weeks where you're dead? And then whenever things get bad and you start letting people go, all of a sudden a ton of work comes in.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that bigger shops have an easier time with than smaller shops. Because when you're a one-man shop, you're working for a couple customers. And, when you have 3 different customers that are giving you work, the chances of them being equally spaced are kind of poor. And there's a good chance that all 3 are going to hit at the same time. But when you have a bigger shop with 100 customers, like, it's a lot more likely that, there's more points of randomness that can average out.
Yeah. And that is something where Xometry could be really good. But
I mean, that's what it's for, really.
That's what it's for. But in my experience, the people that are the most successful of it, at least in the small shop setting, they have to be dedicated. Xometry, because of the way the algorithms work and the way the AI works to get you jobs, and I could be wrong, but this is what I feel like from the experience that I've had thus far, is that it doesn't really work as much as filler work unless you're hitting it really hard, and then you have to stay on it and you get good jobs, but then it's really hard to work with your local customers because you're always busy. And so
I think, like, you would have to be less picky about jobs, or more picky about jobs. You'd have to be less picky about profitability and more picky about doing jobs that you can do right away. Like, only take jobs that you have the tooling for and you have the materials on your shelf.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think you could do it.
Yeah. And that might change when I get a 5-axis machine and all of a sudden a lot of these parts become a heck of a lot easier to just throw on and go and run. At least, one would hope, or at least I hope that, it's the magic fix-all button, that it probably won't be, but one can hope.
Yeah. I'm wanting a 5-axis now. Now that I'm doing more of the job shop stuff, I'm seeing the light.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like, we did some parts for a customer, and we've done, I want to say 10 different versions of the same shape of part, but just different lengths and thicknesses and features on the parts, but they're all in the same family of parts. And they're a 6-op part, and it's probably about an hour and a half per part on the Tormach, and it's 6-ops, and it's stainless steel 304, and it's like the perfect 5-axis part. It's probably about 3/4 of an inch thick by about 4 inches wide by about 3 inches, 2 to 3 inches deep. And it's
Okay.
like the perfect 5-axis part where you could do it in 2 ops. It's got tight tolerance features on both ends of the part that need to be concentric. And so you have to make sure, you have to be very careful when you're flipping it to make sure everything lines up. And it's got drilled and tapped holes on like all the different faces coming in from different angles. And it's just like, it's one of those parts where it is kind of a complicated and cool looking part, but it's not horrible. It's just a lot of setup. And it's one of those parts where I see a ton of benefit out of a probe, and
Mm-hmm.
it makes me curse the Tormach for not having a wireless probe right now.
Yep.
So that's my number one complaint on the Tormach. The Tormach makes fantastic parts as long as you probe them in every single time. It seems like, and that could be part of my fault for having poor setup techniques, but I'm not sure, because I mean, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. So, okay, I need your advice on a part. I have a
Okay.
part that actually I have 20 parts that I'm making that I was hoping to get done today, and I wasn't able to figure it out. Plan A
Okay.
and Plan B did not work.
Okay.
So the part is a small ring. It kind of looks like a crown,
Okay.
or a simplified crown. It's got like a slot on the top and a slot on the bottom. It's a ring shape. Problem
Okay.
is, it is 200 thou in diameter, and the walls are 15 thou. Stainless, 304. So it's like a teeny tiny little crown. And
Gotcha.
I'm having problem with the Op2 work holding. Plan
Okay.
A was to press fit it into a fixture like I used to do on my carabiners, but that
Mm-hmm.
didn't work. That didn't have enough holding power. They would go flying.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm on Plan C right now, aren't I? Plan B was, okay, screw it, just do soft jaws. With that, crushed them.
Mm-hmm.
Plan C was do soft jaws, but put a put a boss on the inside, like how to
Mm-hmm.
like
Keep it from
fill the
getting
center
crushed.
of the crown, yeah, to keep it from getting crushed. And I made two of them, and they both came out kind of wonky.
Mm-hmm.
Like they were tilted for some reason. Like they didn't sit all the way down in the soft jaws, which could just be a soft jaw design thing. But also the second one I did, I could not get out of the soft jaws because the of the bosses in the middle. And I ended up having to remove the soft jaws from my vise and pull it off, and that damaged the part.
Okay. I have two solutions for you. Okay.
Okay.
One of them I'm not sure you can do. The other one I know you can do, but it might be a little bit of a pain.
Okay.
Okay. First solution is, I have dealt with this problem exactly, except on a much larger part. And I made an ID expanding softjaw set using my vise. And what I
Okay.
don't know is if with the flux vise, can you force the jaws apart and hold pressure?
No, you cannot.
Okay. So that option's going to be out. So what I did was I basically used the vise in reverse and used the which, your parts are so small, you might be able to do it if you can get, it doesn't take much. But that's what I did was I machined, and I can pull up and send you some images of it later, but I machined it like a half circle on both sets of soft jaws, and then
Mm-hmm.
I had a thin spacer in between the two, and then you clamp it to release the part, and you unclamp it when it separates it. That's what actually clamps onto the ID of the part.
I could put a spring in the flux vise, or like clamp some rubber in there or something.
Yeah. The other option would be to make yourself a small ID expanding mandrel out of some raw scrap material.
Yeah.
But that one, I feel like there's a little more engineering and fiddling and getting it to actually work right.
That
Which is why I did the Vice thing for me.
Yeah, so I have two backup plans right now. That was my first backup plan, was to make some sort of expanding ID mandrel thing. The problem with that is it would have to be, I don't even, let's see. Yeah, I don't even know if a A80 screw would fit on the inside to expand it out. I'm trying to remember. It might fit though, because I think an A80 flathead is 1/8 of an inch. And
do you have a 3D printer?
I do have a 3D printer.
Okay, I've 3D printed work holding for stuff like this in the past. Have you thought about that for making 3D printing a mandrel that you could then? So here's an idea. Could you 3D print a mandrel, and you could even do a light machining pass around it to true it up, so you can oversize it slightly and then machine around it, and then you could have a piece of material go through the center. It doesn't have to be a bolt. It could be something that you could make, and then you could nut it from the backside so you can have potentially a larger thread.
That could be. I could do that.
Just as a thought.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't sound like it'd be a very big or take long to 3D print something for that.
It would take 4 minutes.
And then you could, the biggest thing would be finding something that you can shove down the middle, and maybe you could machine something like a cone piece with threads on the very end out of some scrap material, and then maybe slitting saw it off or something. Do it in one op, and then you could nut it from the bottom. If a screw's not going to have enough threads, or if a knot 80 is, you need something bigger than that potentially.
I wonder if I could just go back to the tight fitting pocket idea, except put a drop of super glue in there. I wonder if that would work.
It might, but for 20 of them, and you could probably do it to get through it. And it's okay. You can't do it in one op because there's a slot on both sides.
Correct. Yeah. So in retrospect, there's 2 things I would have done differently. Two things I could have done. I think what I would do if I did this part again, I would buy square bar. I would machine like 5 of them in a row and then flip them into soft jaws and machine, 5 of them. And because they would be in a bar, they would self-locate and self-orient.
Okay.
Or I could do them in my 4th axis and tab them off.
Okay. That was going to be my next question is, could you do all the ID work on something, stick it in your Tormach 4th axis, and do the OD work, and then tap it off? Like, yeah. I don't know if those slots have to have flat bottoms, or because that would be the only downside to doing that way, is that any slots you put in it, because they wouldn't be parallel to the axis, they'd be at a 90, they would have the radius of whatever tool you use to cut them.
Yeah, there is a, like if you're doing a cross-section of so if you're cross-sectioning the ring, it would look like an H or half of an H, where there's a large diameter and then a smaller inner diameter and then a large diameter on the bottom again. Kind of like an Oreo. It's like the negative shape of an Oreo.
I gotcha. That makes sense.
So I need to hit it from both directions. I could tap it off on the 4th, but at this point I have done the majority of my op 1s and I'm out of material or low on material.
Could you do you have a slitting saw where you could do both sides in one op?
I could not do the ID bore.
Why not?
If
you slit it, if you did all the work from one side, and then you got a slitting saw that was small enough you could fit down. This might be beyond what you could do today.
I do not have a slitting saw that small. No. Yeah.
This might be beyond what you could do today, but I'm thinking about as a learning opportunity for potential future work. Could you have done it all from one side? You do the larger diameter, the smaller diameter, and then have a slitting saw that you can do the larger diameter on the opposite side to do it all from one op.
Yeah, that would be possible. That's a good point. It would be still a pretty small key seat cutter, but...
Yeah, but I mean, Harvey would have something, I'm sure.
Yeah, I just got a Harvey, not a slitting saw, a key seat cutter today that I can use for the salami slice method on the Haas. Because that was one problem I had. I kept wanting to do salami slice method on things, but I'm having a hard time finding a slitting saw arbor that will fit in the Haas. And so I just bought like the biggest woodruff cutter that I could find, key seat cutter.
Gotcha. Yep. So, okay. Yeah, that's going to be a challenging part, it sounds like, for sure.
Yeah. I I got to the point today where I was like just kind of out of ideas and tired, so I just kept running the op ones.
Gotcha.
So I'm mostly done with the op ones now. There's some pretty small features in there, so they take about 10 minutes each, maybe 12 minutes for op one. The op two should be a little bit quicker.
Yeah. You, how much cutting force does it actually have on it?
My biggest tool is a 16th inch 4-flute.
Okay. So you won't need a whole lot of cutting force.
No.
Yeah, I would. I would almost try to 3D print something if you got enough extra material just to see if you can come up with something. There's been a lot of fixtures that I've done as 3D printing that have all worked really well, and I've held some pretty wild parts with some 3D prints.
Mm-hmm.
But it all depends on. I would definitely do a light cut if you did that, just to true everything up. But
Yeah. It's too bad that there are features I need to clock with each other on the front and the back. If it weren't for that, I have some collet chucks that I could use. I don't know if you saw the video, but I made a base plate that'll fit the same collet chucks that the MicroArc uses.
Mm-hmm.
And plus, I have an ER16 little thingy laying around that I could have used.
Does the is the OD perfectly cylindrical? Does it have any curvature to it, or just perfect cylinder?
It's cylindric.
Could you
on the op 2 side there is a cone, but the op the part that I cut in op 1 is a straight cylinder.
Could you have a mini 3-jaw, right?
Yes.
And you can't hold it with that?
I need to clock the front and back features.
Are you cutting something that's allowing you to clock those?
In the soft jaws, yeah.
Okay. Because the only thing that could you 3D print something that goes on top of the cap of your 3-jaw that you could use to clock it and hold it with your 3-jaw? Because that would give you pressure on 3 points, which would help limit your warpage. And if it's just a clocking issue, if you could come up with a way to clock it using your 3-jaw, that might be the best method.
I thought about making like soft jaws for my 3-jaw, or some sort of like mandrel thing that I clamp in there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I couldn't figure out the clocking. I mean, I guess worst case scenario, the feature on the top is just a slot, kind of like you would put a screwdriver in, except it's a little bit off center for some reason. I could put a gauge pin in that slot and sweep it in and then tighten the vise. That would be rather tedious, but it would work.
Yeah.
To sweep in 20 of these, but
yeah. You got a lot of different options, a lot of different ways to do it, and I'll be honest, I'm just spitballing as many ideas as I can throw at you because I've been in that situation, and the hardest thing when you get your back against the wall is thinking up new ideas. So hopefully one of these ideas that I'm throwing out, I'm not saying they're all great ideas, but you can get by with some pretty sketchy things, and honestly they end up usually working a lot better than you would think.
Ooh, what if I cut like a aluminum or Delrin slug and stuck it in the part before clamping it in the soft jaws?
Yeah, that could work.
That might be the way. It's going to be a very tiny little slug, but it should work.
Yeah, just to act as something inside to whenever you go to clamp it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could be the ticket.
I might do that next. So the part's due tomorrow. Did I mention that?
Yeah. It sounds like you're going to have a late night.
Yeah, also I have another job due tomorrow. The other job is all blocked with holes. It's a Tormach job. And then I have this job.
Okay.
So.
Fair enough.
There will be a video about this. You'll get to see it eventually. You won't be able to see the part.
Yeah. But there'll be a story.
Yeah. Did you hear about PD manufacturing? Did you see that Instagram story?
Mm-mm.
Okay. I'll explain that to you off camera. This is a PD manufacturing job.
Okay. Gotcha.
So.
Yeah. I guess I can tell my story real quick about my fun adventure. So we're in the craziness getting ready for the shop. And right now, basically 2 weeks from yesterday is when the Haas gets delivered, the new machine.
2 weeks from yesterday. Okay.
So it's the 22nd. Or
At
23rd. 23rd.
23rd.
Yeah. 23rd is when the new machine's coming in. And
dude, that's so exciting.
Oh, I'm so ready. And so we're kind of in crunch time for getting the new shop ready. And on this last Sunday, we were working on... So the shop currently has 2 garage doors on it. One of them is on the front of the building that's going to end up going away, and our offices are going to go there. The other one's on the side of the building. When we went to deliver... When they're delivering the machine, we asked them which door they wanted to use. They wanted to use the front door because there's a concrete pad on that side. On the side door, it's just a gravel area. And so, but there was an awning over the front of the building that went over that front door. We were planning on taking it off at some point anyways. And they asked if we could, they wanted to use the front door, but they wanted that awning off. So on Sunday, me and my dad got up there and took it off. And long story short, I ended up falling through the roof.
Whoops.
And or through the awning, and I busted up my leg, and it has been so sore and black and blue.
I am very glad you did not get hurt.
I am too.
Well, other than getting beat up a little bit, but
yeah. The long and the short of it is, it was a metal roof, and it had about a half-inch or quarter-inch foam on the underside, which I don't understand why. In my head, I knew it was foam. But it looks solid, and so I just, out of habit, walked out on it after we had removed the metal, and I took about 1 step, and I just fell. Thankfully, I didn't fall through the roof and go to the ground. I fell, and I fell forward, and I landed on my stomach, but I tore up my left shin just from rubbing against the board, and then I hyperextended my leg. And so it has just been... I've been hobbling around all over the place. But nothing broke, just my pride. So
it was a good story.
Yeah, it's a good story. So, but other than that, man, it's just trying to close off a lot of jobs. We've got it down to single digits of open jobs currently, and our biggest customer, it actually ended up working out really good for us. First of the year, they're changing ERP systems, and they're basically taking 2 or 3 weeks of the month of January to get that all implemented, and so they can't inventory any parts, and they can't send out any POs for new parts during that time frame, which falls basically perfectly in the time that we're trying to get into the new shop. And so my guess is as soon as... And they're going to start on the 19th. So the week that we're going to be moving in is the week that they're going to be opening up and start sending out a whole bunch of POs. And so it's going to be good because we don't have any active jobs right now from them. But I'm guessing that the week that we go to move in the machine, we're just going to get pounded with a whole bunch of new POs.
Yeah, you're going to get that new machine and have some trial by fire there.
Yeah, so it's both exciting and nerve-wracking because we're going to be moving machines, getting everything in place, and then there's probably going to be an avalanche of parts coming our way. But it'll be fun. And then I am trying to come up with a demonstration piece that I can make for the shop on the 5-axis. So just something that I want to make for both me and Weston, probably to have on our desks, just to kind of show our capabilities and potentially give out. I have a couple of ideas, and I'm not going to spoil any of them right now.
Okay.
But I'd like it to be something that you can stick on your desk. Think of your better desks, except if you had access to a 5-axis and wanted to go crazy. And so I'm trying to think of something that you can have on your desk that serves a purpose, but is like, it's like something that you would try to 3D print instead of machine.
Yeah.
And so I've got a couple ideas that I'm working through.
You could do, this is my first thought, do a pencil cup that is basically like almost a sphere, like a kind of tall sphere with the, you know, the top and the bottom cut off and a hole where you can put pencils in, but then iso grid the whole outside.
Yeah.
And you could only do that on a 5-axis because it's
spherical. You might do that on a 4-axis.
The walls would get funny at the edges.
That's true. They would. Yeah. That's not a bad one. I have a different idea. I'm going for, I don't know, we'll see. I'm not going to spoil it too much. I'm going to refrain from spoiling it just in case we do it. If we don't do it, I'll let you know what I was thinking, but
okay.
But I have an idea, and I want to make some parts that just screams, you know, new capabilities, basically.
Yeah.
So,
anyways,
fun. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm gonna have to learn 5-axis, which will be fun, because this will be my first
bad in Fusion.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna be that bad, but like everyone says it's easy, and then they like show videos, and it's like there's a lot of steps that you guys didn't show that are, I'm sure it's just a one-time setup deal, but that's the thing I need. I need the one-time setup, like start to finish, everything we need to do, and go
3 plus 2 is basically like it's super, super easy. Like there's no problems there. Getting clean toolpath with full 5-axis moves is where it gets a little bit funky.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're going to have some of that. But I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be awesome. Whatever we end up doing with it, it's going to be so much better than what we currently have. I mean, we're going to be going up from like a rubber band gun to like a full on automatic in terms of capabilities.
Yep.
But it'll be exciting. And I actually had my big customer, they sent me about 50 parts not 50, it was 7 different parts. It was about 50 to 60 total parts based on the quantities, but 7 different parts to quote. And they were the biggest parts that we've ever seen from them. They'll all fit on the new machine. The problem is some of the parts have tapped holes on the side, and we might have to invest into a right angle head for the machine.
Ooh.
So,
man, 5-axis and a right angle head.
Yeah, because they're way too big to. We're talking like 40-inch long parts 30-inch long parts that have holes tapped on the end, and it's like I'm gonna have 26 inches in Z, but that's not. I'm not gonna stand that part up 26 inches and tap the end of it. So
yeah.
So right angle head tool is gonna be the ticket for that. So we'll see. Go ahead.
So you seem to do a lot of those parts where you almost need some sort of like custom dedicated machine, like a router that's got like, 48 inches in X and like an inch in Y, so you can do parts like this.
I'm going to say something, and Dylan, if you're listening to this, you can message me after you've heard this part of the talk, because he brought up a very good point, and I've been thinking about it ever since we bought this machine, and this is the perfect example. If I'd gotten the Haas 5-axis machine, I could have just tilted the table at B90 and then drilled and tapped it. And with the length of this part, I could have been hanging into the chip tray if it needed to, and I could still drill and tap the ends without needing a right angle head. There's lots of reasons we didn't end up going that route, but that is the number one reason I was heavily considering just getting a dedicated 5-axis like that.
Yeah.
So a lot of good points. Just to kind of peek behind the curtain, one of the reasons we didn't go that route is because I'd like to. We filled up that shop in CAD with all the different future machines we're looking at getting, and I'm thinking about getting a different machine and moving the 5-axis trunnion over to a smaller machine, where it takes up almost the full table size, and then turning the VF3 into my large plate work machine. The VF3. And so that's kind of one of the major deciding factors that kind of led me down that route, is because I could get a smaller machine, move my trunnion table over to it, and then have a big plate work machine for a relatively small investment.
That
And
makes sense to me.
Haas just did a wicked deal on that machine. So we basically got the 5-axis trunnion for basically free.
Yeah. What trunnion is it?
It's the TRT 210.
Okay.
So I think it's a 9-inch platter. And most of the 5-axis parts that we're going to be doing, I feel like with the UMC 500 would be too big for, and you'd have to have really tall riser blocks, because most of the parts that we've done so far that would be great for 5-axis have been under a 6x6 cube in size.
Okay. Yeah.
So like most of the parts that would be perfect, and I feel like the UMC 500 would be overkill for that. So that was the other reason we kind of leaned towards the trunnion method.
Makes sense.
And I had a thought, because once I get that 5-axis on there, I'm not going to want to take it off. And so if I have a really long part, that trunnion could be in the way. But I was thinking, most of the parts that are long, they're long and skinny. So I can probably rotate my axis to B90, and I could have the part go in front of the trunnion and leave it on the table, because I have 26 inches in Y.
Yeah.
And so if I push the trunnion back a little bit, I can rotate it to B90 or to the front. It really doesn't matter. It just needs to be towards the front or towards the back. Rotate it to B90, and as long as the part's less than, I don't know, 12 inches or whatever the length ends up being, I can probably still use my full 40 in Y or in X and machine parts without actually taking off the trunnion.
Yeah, it might be a little bit scary when you're on the dark side of the moon with your spindle behind your trunnion. But
it just depends on which side I put it.
Well, yeah, you just put the trunnion the other way. Yeah, that makes sense.
So,
yeah, that'd be awesome.
So I don't know if that's actually going to work, but I was thinking about it the other day, and as long as I got enough space to be able to do that, and I might have to be on the dark side of the moon, just because having B90 the other way could still potentially hit the head of the machine.
Oh, yeah, it's true. There's more clearance on the front of the spindle than on the back of the spindle anyway.
Yeah, so plus having it towards the front, if we ever want to do robot loading, having it more towards the front would be better for that too. But regardless of all that, I think I'll have a lot of space if I rotate to B90 to actually machine full length parts without taking it off. If I set it up right.
Yeah. So let's see, your machine will have 40 inches of travel now, right? You said an X?
40 in X, 26 in Y.
Okay, so your first part you're going to run on that machine is going to be like 80 inches long, knowing you.
So I'm working on quoting a part that's 30 inches long for that machine.
Not for the Tormach?
Yeah, no, this one's not for the Tormach. Don't tip me, but but no, I'm not planning on doing that one for the Tormach.
I keep taking tall parts that need like small but really long tools. I need to stop doing that.
Yeah, that's a whole nother thing that I want to. We're going to be entering a whole new level of machining, and there's going to be a huge learning curve, and I have delusions of grandeur that we're going to try to obtain. So we'll see how it goes.
Now, I would be willing to bet that this learning curve is going to be much easier for you than your first, like, let's start a machine shop learning curve. So,
yes.
maybe you can do it.
Yes. Yeah, I have no doubt that I can do it. It's just that pushing that cycle start button is going to be a lot more expensive if anything goes wrong. So I'm going to have a very healthy respect in the beginning, but I will say this though. In talking to some other individuals, I think I've actually been surprisingly competitive on my machine time with my Tormach, more than I gave it credit for, just because of how hard we try to push it and how not hard a lot of other people push their machines. Especially like in anything where you would not normally use tooling over 1/2 inch to 3/8, I'm actually pushing my machine hard enough that I think I could be a lot more competitive than I thought I was, compared to newer machines. at least in stainless. In aluminum, it's funny because I was sitting here doing some numbers. I'm actually more competitive in stainless than I am in aluminum on the Tormach.
Interesting.
And the reason is because the Tormach doesn't have the rapids or the horsepower to run aluminum at the high feeds and speeds that a lot of other shops can do. But the stainless, because everyone's running slower RPMs and slower feeds, my Tormach with a 1/4-inch tool is actually relatively competitive to a couple of the other people talking to in terms of MRR. So
I ran so much stainless in December, and I figured out it's actually faster to do it on my Tormach than on my Haas. Because the best thing my Haas has going for it is RPM, and you just can't use it in stainless. Other than tiny tools.
Yeah. Although, that being said, okay, and this is something that I'll open up to the community some, is that, what are the kinds of surface footage, feeds and speeds that you can be running in a high feed strategy for stainless? Because I've heard some people, like, typically our surface footage range when we're running stainless with the Haas tooling, and we're running more of a traditional roughing strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Typically between 200 and 300 is kind of the max surface footage range.
Yep, that's about where I land.
But I've heard of some people running like really shallow depths of cut, but really deep, high efficiency milling strategies. And it sounds like they're running, between 400 and 500 SFM just because of how light their cuts are. And I would be curious to see, the advantages for doing it that way, or the time savings or MRR and all that kind of stuff. So I was looking at some tooling from Helical, Helical, and they had a 1/2-inch tool that was a 7 flute for stainless, and you could do up to a 2-inch depth of cut with like a 5 to 10% tool diameter step over. And I forget the surface footage that was recommending. I think it was in the 400 range. But the MRR on it was insane. It was like, so to put it into context, on the Tormach, the highest MRR value I've been able to get in stainless is around 0.6 cubic inches a minute. And that tool, with the speeds and feeds recommended by Helical, was in the neighborhood of 8 to 9 cubic inches a minute.
Wow. Was that a 1/2-inch tool, or?
That was a 1/2-inch tool.
Okay, for being 2 inches long.
Yeah. And so, just absolutely insane compared to what my Tormach can do. Mm-hmm. And so, as we are getting into bigger and bigger parts, that's going to be an area that I'm going to want to experiment in and see how high I can get it. Because while I know high feeds and speeds are not the end-all be-all in the job shop world, I want to be able to get my parts out as fast as possible, to be able to react to my customers. And just because there's 2 of us, and basically my number one customer has said, as many parts as you can take, we'll give you. And so I want to see what I can do with the new machine for that.
Yep.
So how many parts can I get done in a week? And without having any kind of robot automation, that means getting as many parts done in one day as possible. So we'll see.
Yeah, my templates have been working pretty well for me. I need to fill them out a little bit more. Like I think I need to build some more like kind of generic fixtures. Like, for example, last week, at some point I built a way to mount collet chucks to my mill table, to the Saunders table. There's a YouTube video if anyone wants details on that.
It's a good video.
And that, like, I've already used that thing like 4 times, and I've started to build out a template around that fixture. And so that's been nice and opened up like a lot of, it's made a lot of work that would have been more difficult, like pretty easy. And I need a couple more things like that. My next plan, and I was about ready to make this part before I realized I made a terrible design mistake. Remember that little self-centering vise I got that was a little bit smaller than I thought it would be? I showed it in the Christmas episode. So I was going to mount that thing to the micro arc. So I could use that. Except I ran into this problem where the size of that vise and the position of the mounting holes on the micro arc are such that the vise is always covering up at least one of the holes on the micro arc at any time. And so you have to mount through the plate to mount it to the micro arc, but you also have to mount the vise through the plate. And so there's no possible way to get all the mounting holes or all the mounting screws in. So I may have to make like a plate that goes on the micro arc and then a plate that goes on the vise with screw holes to screw them together, which is kind of annoying. But
have you thought about making or having it made a add-on to the vise or add-on to the micro arc, where kind of like how Dylan did his vise?
Yeah.
It allows you to kind of rotate it.
I have thought about that. And like the flux workholding 90-degree adapter thingy that they have for their flux pucks. And that way I could kind of do a pseudo 5-axis thing.
Honestly, that would be amazing. Get a flux puck adapter. Okay. This needs to happen now. We need a flux puck adapter to the 5-axis or to the micro arc, and then a 90-degree plate to another flux puck and then that to a vise. So you can rotate
these. They make them. It's like it's a 90-degree adapter with a flux puck on the end, and you can rotate the 90-degree adapter or the vise on the end. And so you get all the same degrees of freedom as a 5-axis, but in 15-degree increments.
Actually, all you need is
manual.
All you need is an adapter. You don't need 2 flux puck adapters. You just need the one adapter to the micro arc that comes down low with a flux puck adapter, and then adapt that to your vise. So you only need one flux puck adapter. That would be okay. That needs to happen.
Yeah, he already has this. Or I don't think Ken has been making the flux pucks yet, or he hasn't been selling them yet. I think he's still kind of in the R&D phase, trying to get that production up and running again. But like the old guy, whatever his name was, he had these.
That needs to happen.
It's just
again.
a matter of buying one.
That needs to happen
again. I have
again.
a pseudo 5-axis.
Yeah, that would be amazing. So, that's a great way.
And I have discovered those locating pins in the bottom of the flux work holding soft jaws. Those are the best pins I have ever used. I'm going to use those on all my fixtures now.
Those looked really cool. Like that in that video and how that worked. I really like that.
Yeah. And you get them for free whenever you order a new pair of soft jaws.
Can you order them on their own?
Yes, you can. They're a little bit expensive on their own, but they come with soft jaws. Though I am trying to talk Ken into like bulk selling me soft jaws, not as kits, because they normally come in like a set of 3, and they have the 2 locating pins, and like they each have a my brain's going to grub screw, but that's the British term, a set screw. They all have a set screw, and it's like just sell me the blank soft jaws in bulk. I'll buy like 10 at a time or whatever. So
yeah, that'd be a great idea, because then you don't have to give up the hardware, and you can just sell. You can sell it as just the raw soft jaws. You can sell it as a kit with all the hardware, and you can sell all the hardware separate from the soft jaws if people want to buy that. Yeah, I like that.
So I'm good on soft jaws right now. I bought like 4 or 5 sets from him, and they actually last me a lot longer than I thought they would. You can kind of rearrange them to always get fresh
sides,
faces, and then you can machine down 1/4 of an inch like twice. And so I actually get like 24 uses or something like that out of each set of 3 soft jaws. So I can't really complain about that.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, that's huge. But that's cool.
See, other than that, we did some renovations in my shop. Did you see those on Instagram or anything? Yeah. So the grinding room used to be in what we called the dirty dungeon, which was the last horse stall left over from when my shop used to be a barn. And that room has now been enclosed entirely with a real wall and real windows. and a flappy door. And my air compressor is in there, and it makes a huge difference in sound outside. The air compressor is now quieter than the mill, and
that's awesome.
it is so nice. And then inside that room, I mean, obviously the air compressor is still loud, but when the air compressor is not running, the mill's really quiet. So
yeah,
and there's nice lighting. The room also got about 3 feet smaller, so the machining portion of the shop is now larger. What else did I do? Oh, I rearranged my workbenches, so now I am kind of in a more compact cell, and I built my computer into one of my workbenches. I was using my old laptop to in the shop, and because it was a laptop, I was able to put a monitor on a monitor stand and close the laptop and like kind of slide it up between the toolbox that's underneath the workbench and the top of the workbench, so it's not taking up room. And that has also been really nice because I used to walk 20 feet every time I needed to go change a program. And I can't change programs on the controller of the Haas if I don't put them on the internal memory. And the internal memory is too small for basically 100% of my programs. So,
oh no, that's annoying.
Well, okay, so there's the hard drive that I can DNC from, and then there's like the memory. And the hard drive I think is like 8 gigs or something, or maybe it's 8. No, it's more than 8 megabytes. I don't know. It's plenty big, but the internal memory is like a megabyte. So if the program is bigger than a megabyte, which all of mine are because I'm using tiny tools and lots of surfacing, then I can't edit them on the control. So I have to go back to the computer and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth.
Gotcha. Yep. I think my Haas is only going to have 1 gig of memory unless I want to pay to unlock the hard drive they actually stick in the stupid thing, which is a whole nother topic. Like, I won't go too deep down this rabbit hole because every other machinist out there is going to understand where I'm coming from. Yeah. But there are certain features on the Haas machines where I support the idea that you pay for the features that you need. Okay, I do support that. But if the feature has existed for 10 plus years, it needs to become standard, or at least standard on machines that make sense. And my number one complaint for that is, well, it used to be rigid tapping, but now that's now standard on most machines, which I couldn't believe it wasn't. I couldn't believe that it wasn't for the longest time. The other one is high speed machining, not being a standard on their SS machines. Like, I can understand it on their default machines, but anyways, it's a whole rabbit hole. I won't go down it, but there are certain features that just need to be standard at this point. Another one being maybe go up from a gig to 4 gigs or something. Anyways, regardless of all that stuff, it'll be an amazing new machine. So
I have encountered the first issue with my Haas, the first machine maintenance issue.
What's that?
It's not keeping me from running right now, but it's getting a little bit annoying. So taking a step back, like I said in December, I was running like all stainless. And I was starting to see some symptoms that kind of made me wonder if the drawbar wasn't quite working as well as it should.
Okay.
For one, it's always made a little bit of a popping noise, but that popping noise has gotten a little bit louder, and that's a sign of the drawbar needing maintenance. And then I also, on one of the larger, actually it was this tool right here, this long one that I was running. This is a 3/8 end mill that's,
oh my goodness, what are you doing?
2.5 inch stick out or something. That was the stainless part where I used the 10th thou end mill that was 2 inches long. But I noticed that tool ended up with, I don't remember the term for it. It's not galling, but there's like a type of corrosion you get when you have 2 tight surfaces that are together and they vibrate or something like that. I don't remember what that's called. But I noticed that on that tool, which that's kind of a dumb tool to be running in this machine. But I also noticed it on my 3/8 inch rougher. 3/16 inch rougher, which I was pushing pretty hard, but it's like, okay, I guess I'll back off from the speeds and feeds a little bit. And it just kind of stuck in the back of my head.
Yeah. I just watched a RegoFix video on this very topic.
Oh, really?
I'll see if I can find that video and send it to you. But if you end up needing your spindle reground, I didn't know this, but you can hire services to come out and they'll regrind your spindles
Ooh,
and
in
keep it
place?
in place.
Ooh, that would be worth it.
And so if that becomes a major issue and it starts messing up all your different holders, I don't know where they are or what they are, but in Rico's Fixes video, they claim that there's services where they can come out and regrind them in machine.
That would be nice. Because I have noticed a little bit of like pitting and stuff on the inside of my spindle.
Yeah.
But okay, so that was my first sign. And then just the other day, I was cleaning the taper as best I could, and I noticed there was a little bit of the plastic dust that was rampant in this machine when I first got it, because they were running small tools and acrylic, and it made this like fine powder. It was almost clay-like when it stuck to stuff and mixed with coolant. And I had like a rag, and I was kind of, cleaning on the inside, or as an alcohol wipe or something. And I noticed some of that was on the end of it. Or I guess it could have been silvery white grease. I don't know. And then today, though, is where it started to really be a problem. And now I believe what is happening is the drawbar is not getting reset all the way to the clamped position, and it's not hitting that sensor sometimes during tool changes. So about 1 in 20, maybe 1 in 30 tool changes, it will alarm out and stop. So
yeah,
that's, I think, as soon as I'm done with this current batch of work here, which will be, well, hopefully tomorrow, fingers crossed. I think I'm going to need to tear down the head of my thing and lubricate the drawbar and clean it out and yada yada.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm gonna try to replace the Belleville washers. I saw some comment about it not being possible on this spindle, but I don't know if that's true yet or not. And this is a weird spindle that Haas doesn't acknowledge. There's zero information about the OM with the 40K spindle. So
interesting. Don't ruin it.
Yeah, I'm not going to ruin it. It's working now, and I'm not going to push it. But if I can get the drawbar out and lubricate the washers at least, that should be enough.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds good. Just take it easy and you should be okay.
Yeah. Oh, the other issue I have noticed, and this is actually why I was cleaning the spindle, and I think I have improved at very least, is I would dial in the run out on a tool, then the tool would go into the ATC, and then it went back into the spindle, and my run out would be wildly worse. And I think that was because of like a chip that was stuck to the inside of my taper. I haven't verified it again after getting that chip out, but I did notice an improvement in the next tool that I dialed in. So hopefully that'll help. But I don't know. Machine just needs some TLC. Yeah. I've been very lucky that it hasn't had any issues, like none. It has the issue where if it rapids, it thinks one of the motor encoders is loose. So I keep it at 50% rapids, and that just fixed that issue completely. And there were some sheet metal screws missing, but other than that, I've had zero issues with this machine until now. So can't complain about the $18,000 machine from 2006 having one maintenance issue. So
yeah, no, that'll be good. We will probably end up getting a used machine in our shop at some point. I would like to, once we get kind of grounded and the dust settles and we kind of get into a groove of things again, I would like to trade out the Tormach for potentially a DT / brother style machine. Whatever machine replaces the Tormach needs to have a strong fourth axis on it, because that is going to be the biggest reason that we are hanging on to the Tormach at this point. Is that it is the only machine we have with a fourth axis, and there are certain parts that have to have a fourth axis to be able to run.
Yeah.
So And I think a DT Brother style machine with a fourth axis would be an awesome, because you could use it for fourth axis work, or you could use it for just being a fast machine, but being able to pull double duty would be awesome. So,
can I make some administrative notes here before we wrap up?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. We put out a call every now and then on the podcast that is, if you are a small business that offers a physical service or makes a physical product, then we will give you a free plug on our show. And we got a message from Elijah Langworthy at Nocturnal Welding. He specializes in aerospace welding, I believe he said. I'm looking at his Instagram profile now, which I'll link down in the description. And he appears to have a lot of like aluminum and stuff. So if you are needing a high-end welder, he is in California. Look up Nocturnal Welding at nocturnalwelding.com. There's free shout out for this episode. Nice. Also, we are not only a podcast on podcast players now, but we are also on YouTube. So right now it's on the Audacity Micro YouTube channel. I'm still uploading some of the backlog. I've got about 10 episodes left. It takes about 4 hours for me to upload an episode on my country internet, so it's going a little bit slow. But we actually have more than doubled our audience by throwing these up on YouTube. So hi, everybody on YouTube. You guys are now the majority of our listeners.
That's crazy.
So yeah, it's more than my mom. Like, does your mom watch on YouTube?
She does not. It's not us for sure.
So if you're listening on YouTube, yes, we exist on normal podcast players. If you're watching on normal podcast players and you prefer YouTube, we're on YouTube. I turn off mid-roll ads so you don't get any ads in the middle of the podcast. Just one at the beginning, at the end. And fun fact, we get about 0.005 of a cent for your view.
Woohoo!
So, yeah. Or no, I'm sorry, 0.005 of a dollar. So that would be 0.5 cent, right? We get about 0.5 cent for your view.
That's actually more than I thought.
Yeah, it's not bad. My YouTube channel has done shockingly well. So here's a couple stats. So I was looking at this earlier today. In the lifetime of my YouTube channel, which I believe started in 2017, my YouTube channel has made $2,000.
Mm-hmm.
In, what are we at, 7 years approximately? Probably like 6.5 or something. $2,000. 400 of that has been in the last 30 days.
Nice.
So it's like, oh, that's actually a useful amount of money from YouTube for the first time ever.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I have, I think, a little bit over 4,000 subs, or I'm sorry, I'm at about 4,600 subs, and 1,000 of those have been in the last about 30 days.
Wow,
so
that's cool.
I published the video that's like, hey, I'm a job shop now, and YouTube was like, oh, we like you now, and it's like, oh, this is actually might be a part of my business going forward. So I'm making about $13 a day right now without publishing a video.
Nice.
So
that is
like,
nice.
oh, that is a useful amount of money. That's like, a job less per month that I have to take, basically.
Mm-hmm. I like it. Well, got anything else? The only problem with this is going to be really hard for me to do the outro with this music. It's such good music. No. Well, it's that time of the show where we get to say goodbye until next time. So for all of you that have been listening to us, we appreciate it. Starting off 2024 with a lot of changes for both of us. And we'll just see how it goes for the next year. This is Harrison with Precision Ingenuity signing out with AJ from Audacity Micro, formerly Design the Everything.
Bye.